Thank you again for the opportunity. I'm also coming from the famous program that has presented before. So the main aim of this talk is to brief you about the study that, the monitoring that we started from 2009 up until 2011. And yes, we are also focusing on the emerging species, which is called Hydrilla verticillata. At the moment, it's only invading in Pongolapoort Darn, and we are asking a question whether is it really a crisis or not. Okay, Hydrilla comes from the tropical areas of Asia, and it invades temperate to tropical areas such as those listed there. And in USA, it's a major problem. It was discovered in 1960 and is all found in most of the water bodies in USA. And in African countries, it is also recorded in countries like Egypt, Mozambique, which is our neighbor, and in South Africa was only located in 2006. Invading in Pongolapoort Darn, which is widely known for the tiger fishing competition, and it attracts most boaters which come from different countries. And as I mentioned earlier, it's one of the focus species because it's listed as a category 1A on the NIMBA regulations. Okay. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll just briefly explain about the plant. It comes from the Hydrocaritaceae family, and it grows in water. It's completely submerged. It's rooted from the surface, and it shoots these long stems, which then spread horizontally when they reach the water surface and form pigments. The leaf arrangement is in holes of 3 to 8 around the stems, and the leaves are characterized as having serration on the margins and with the sharp pointed tips. It reproduces in various ways, such as fragments, meaning that small piece of a plant can start its own population. And it also produces turions, which produce in 2 ways. Axillary is on the leaf's axil, and the subterranean one is produced from the rhizomes. There are 2 biotypes of Hydrilla, the monoecious one and the dioecious one. The dioecious one meaning is having male and female from different flowers, and what we've located in Pongola was only the female one, which is associated with the one that comes from Asia and from Malaysia. It's characterized by these 3 white the flower is characterized by the white petals. We are really concerned about it because it's an aggressive invader. It spreads very fast, and it can grow about 5 to 10 centimeters a day, and can double the size in 10 to 20 days. As I've mentioned earlier, that the moment it reaches on top of the water, it spreads and forms a thick mess, and that prevents the penetration of light, and that's how it competes with the indigenous species, which are now unable to photosynthesize without light. And Hydrilla itself has an advantage because it can photosynthesize in the absence of light. It also obstructs the movement of the aquatic fauna. And as I mentioned earlier, it can spread from just a small piece of a plant. And the vegetative structures called turions can remain in the sediment for 4 years, waiting for the conditions to be favorable again. And what it needs to do, if you take it out of water, it only needs moisture and shade in order to survive, and it can stay for up to 3 months, and the moment it reaches water, it will grow again. In countries where they've tried herbicide control, the turions are very resistant to the herbicides. So they just survive. The plant can die, but they survive on the sediment up until the conditions become favorable again. So basically the aim of the monitoring Hydrilla in Pongolapoort Darn was to understand the processes involved in its invasion and try to answer the following questions, such as how much damage is caused by Hydrilla invading in the Pongolapoort Darn, how serious a risk does Hydrilla pose to other aquatic ecosystems within the Pongola catchment and also in other water bodies in the country. And what is the likelihood of containment and the management of this species? we've surveyed the whole Pongola catchment, starting from where it starts from up until the end, but we focused our quarterly surveys on the Pongolapoort Dam, where it's found at the moment. We were using line transects to mark the presence and the absence of hydrilla at every 500 meters intervals, and we also had 10 sampling sites which were demarcated as 50 by 50 quadrants, 50 by 50 meters quadrants. Within each quadrant, we measured temperature, depth, pH, and we also collected the water samples for the nutrient analysis. We also did the questionnaire survey, interviewing the boaters, where they come from and what other water bodies do they normally visit. Okay, this is just a rough map of the Pongolapoort Dam. For those of you who don't know where it occurs in the northern part of KwaZulu-Natal, right at the border between South Africa and Swaziland. As you can see, that red line, that is the border of Swaziland. And this is just showing some of the plants that are found within the system. Obviously, I'll just talk about the main sampling sites. We use this area as a main sampling site because that's where hydrilla is concentrated, and we've located a lot of children of hydrilla here. We also have the Najas, which is also from the Hydrocaritaceae family, which is only localized there, and there are other indigenous plants which are also submerged, such as Pongolapoort Darn, also found in that site. Pongolapoort Schweinfurter, which is really found throughout the dam. There is also Pongolapoort crispus, and the Riella is very rare to find. We only located it once, and it's a danger because it's on this zone that is highly infested by hydrilla. Okay, now my results from when we started in 2009. We first determined the cover of the submerged species in the dam, and the cover of the submerged species in the Pongolapoort Dam was about 43%, and within that 43%, hydrilla was occupying 47%, 22% from the Pongolapoort crispus and Pongolapoort Schweinfurter, and the 8% from the Kara. And then in 2010, we noted a decrease of the overall cover of plants. They decreased from 43% to 22%, and also hydrilla was decreasing because previously it was 47% and now it came to 35%. And we noted an increase in the Kara. Kara is a completely submerged plant. It doesn't really need light in order to photosynthesize. While the Schweinfurter was doing well, in fact it was increasing, and the crispus, which I mentioned on the previous slide, that is also found on the core where hydrilla is mostly found, started decreasing. In 2010, there was also another change, and I mean the overall coverage of land also keep on decreasing. Now it decreased to 11%, and hydrilla started to increase, and we saw a lot of increase on the Kara, and the Schweinfurter is still surviving, but the crispus is really affected. So this is just a pattern of what hydrilla is, how it has been behaving from it was reported. In 2006, when it was reported, it was estimated to 600 hectares, and when we started these surveys, we find 278 hectares, and it continued to decrease to 106. And I must say, in 2011, there was a big flood release of water from the dam to the downstream users. And that's maybe the reason why it picked up, because that flood release created a lot of shallow areas, and is one of the conditions that hydrilla grow in. So the parameters that are influencing the growth of hydrilla are temperature and depth. In 2010, the temperature was a bit low as compared to other years. As you can see that, hydrilla is not really doing well. But as soon as the water was released, and there was a decrease in depth, more shallow areas were created, and the temperature also went up. So the hydrilla grows well at high temperature and in shallow areas. Okay, these are my findings from the questionnaire surveys. Most of the participants who also come for the tiger fishing competition are coming in several areas such as Mozambique, or they also go to Mozambique when they leave the dam. Two most dams that are under threat in South Africa are the Vaal system and the Loskop Dam, because most of the participants also go to these dams. From what we've found out, we think hydrilla hasn't yet really realized its full potential. Excuse me. The increases in temperature and the decrease in water depth promote the growth of hydrilla, and the warm temperature and clay sediment in Pongolapoort Darn are favorable growth conditions for the hydrilla, and the churion survive very well in the sediments. The recent flood release has really created shallow areas, so we are likely to see the growth or the increase in the size of extension size of the infestation of hydrilla, because now that shallow areas are more favorable for the hydrilla to grow, bearing in mind of that the sediment type is also clayey. The dams that are frequently visited by the boaters are likely to be invaded by hydrilla. But the possible reason that we think that maybe is a reason why hydrilla hasn't really invaded those dams is that maybe like the Vaal system is prevented by the cold temperatures, rocky sediment. But I've also noted recently that hydrilla doesn't really like to grow on very high nutrient concentration, of which we know that Vaal is usually having that problem of eutrophication. So what I can recommend is that we continue with monitoring hydrilla in order to find out more about it. And at this stage, I think it's suitable for the release of biocontrol, because we've been seeing some decrease, but more research is really required to find out how can we control the hydrilla. The boat washing campaign that is existing in Pongola needs to be made mandatory, and it should also be spread to other dams, especially like the recreational dams that are also visited by the boaters. And it shouldn't be really boat washing after leaving the dam, but even before, to prevent further introductions of the invasive alien plants. And the flood releases need to be planned well in order to control further infestations. Okay. Thank you a lot for listening to me, and I believe you'll be my spotters for the hydrilla. These are just my lovely friends that I always see when I visit the dam. Thank you.
Any questions?
In this flood release events, how do you control